Picture this. It's the dawn of 2025 and you're poised for success. Why? Because you've established your why. This isn't just a whim or a hobby. It's the passion that propels you forward, the core of your ambition. Next, you assess your current position. Where do you stand? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Honesty is key here. Now envisage your destination. What do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Set those goals. Make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. With your destination locked, it's time to map out your plan. Break down your goals into manageable steps, then start stepping. Remember, action without reflection is aimless. Record your results, analyze your performance, and adjust your plan accordingly. The path to success in 2025 isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Take meaningful action, keep your eye on the prize, and continually strive for improvement. Here's to a successful 2025.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, today we've got a really special guest. We've got a person who has come from being a constable on the beat 38 years ago, who is now an advocate, a practicing advocate. And this person today, and this is our guest speaker, Sally Khan, Advocate Sally Khan. So we welcome her today. And just a little quick one about what Sally's done. She started off as a constable working on the beat in the South African police force. And then she had an interest in law, and slowly she worked herself up the ranks. And then she started practicing as a advocate. She then became the Lieutenant General, Deputy General in the police force. She retired in 2022, and now she's a practicing advocate with chambers in Pretoria at Loftus. So we welcome her today. She's going to be talking to us. But before we go there, today is the fourth Thursday of the month. And on the fourth Thursday of the month, we talk about business acumen. Now, today's world, we got AI, we've got ChatGPT, DeepSeek, all these various programs that we can use to actually really get somewhere in our lives. But the thing is that we need to have that knowledge and that wisdom in order to make smart decisions so that we can actually be successful in business. And that's what today is all about. This is the fourth Thursday of the month, and we talk about business acumen. So we're very pleased to invite Sally Khan, Advocate Sally Khan, to come and talk to us today. But before we go there, let me quickly introduce our co-hosts. I'm going to let them introduce themselves quickly. We're going to go around the room, and we're going to start with Mona Ruiz. Mona, would you like to introduce yourself? Just unmute yourself.
The button didn't want to work for a moment. So hi, good morning. My name is Marna Rutz, and I am in the short-term insurance space. And we don't just sell insurance. I provide a real protection for your business that can't afford to get it wrong. At InScorp, we specialize in commercial insurance because running a business is risky enough without the wrong cover. And then sectional title insurance, we do that as well, keeping complex living simple with the right protection. We also do transport and the logistic insurance, but we specialize in the alternative insurance. So we try and find the right price and insurance for your special needs, because every business is unique. We don't sell cheap insurance. We do the right insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Welcome to the show. Let's introduce Wilhelm Lombard. Wilhelm, can you just unmute and just introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, David, thank you very much. You all look so good. I wonder if you are not AI avatars or something like that, but I'm real. Now, I'm a life quality and peak performance strategist, so it's all about quality of life for me. You know, with that video insert, it's about setting your goals and achieving and all those things. But if you achieve without quality of life, it doesn't really help. So I try to focus on that, help people to have a quality, high energetic life. And also in the business, that each and every person in the business enjoy their business, are visions aligned with the business vision. And that are the things that I usually do. I'm looking forward to what Sally can tell us today, and I can't wait because I know of a few people that have some labor issues.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Welcome to the show. Let's ask Glenn to come up and tell us a little bit about himself. Welcome, Glenn. Unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Great to be on the show again. Always an honor. My name, as you can see, is Glenn Jones, and I'm a life and business coach. I also do counseling and mentoring. I often say to people that I'm your personal locksmith because I help unlock the potential that's inside you, and I help you to step in your destiny and discover your purpose. So that's really what I'm about. Looking forward to Sally's talk today. I know this lady for a long time, and she's really great, really awesome lady. So looking forward to it. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Glenn. Great to have all of you as co-hosts here today. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to give Sally the floor. She's going to tell us a little bit about how to actually be smart with regard to employer labor law. So that's going to be really important. And I think we all need to learn a little bit, especially in today's world. And then what we'll do is open it to the floor, to the co-hosts who will come on and talk about some of their own personal experiences. And then if there are any questions, we'll ask Sally to address those. And then we'll call it off. So we normally try and finish by 8:45. So let's do this. Sally, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here, and you're looking so beautiful with your beads, your orange beads. They really pop. So welcome. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then launch into what you want to tell us all about being, smart in business with regard to business acumen and labor law.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David, and the rest of the team, Marna, Wilhelm, and Glenn. It is really a great honor and a pleasure for me to be presenting on labor law, which is very close to my heart in terms of my work, and also as a service to fellow human beings and employees that one encounters. So thank you for this opportunity. My background very quickly, David has alluded to quite a bit, but safe to say that, yes, I've actually worked myself up in the ranks as a committed public servant, had a passion for the law, studied the law, left the police, did my pupillage practice for a while, and then my blood is blue, I say, and the police called me back. And there I was at the level of a deputy DG, at the head of legal services for the South African Police Services, as at the end of 2022. I'm back in practice from 2023, practicing at Loftus Chambers. I'm a member of PABASA, which is the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa. So when I was approached by David to do a presentation, I thought it was very appropriate in view of the theme of business acumen that I talk to the issues of labor law. Now, the question one needs to ask is, why is labor law important for you as an employer, big or small? So you will see that the title of my presentation is Labor Law and Employee Rights, a smart business move. So for business acumen, one needs to actually comply with the labor laws in whatever jurisdiction you might be, to ensure that you have a satisfied employee, because there are lots of benefits. I must at the very outset iterate that labor laws are not only in favor of an employee, they actually support the employer as well. So I will get on with my presentation and just go through the relevant prescripts, not too much in detail because I do not want to bore you with the sections and so forth, but give you a glimpse into something that you might already be very acquainted with. So basically, employees are the heartbeat of any business. Without them, even the best strategies and resources remain idle. Unlike machines and capital, employees bring creativity, they bring dedication, and they bring innovation into the workplace. And they are the company's most valuable assets. A business can replace and upgrade equipment, technology, adjust finances, but a motivated workforce is irreplaceable. Happy and engaged employees drive productivity. They actually enhance customer satisfaction and they fuel business success. So if one needs to look very closely, your employee is the heartbeat of your business, your organization, your institution, whatever. So why does it matter? Why does it matter to comply with the labor laws? It's a strategic advantage. It's not just a legal requirement. Have you ever faced an employee-related challenge? I'm sure you have. Insofar as it relates to an unfair dismissal, an employee on probation alleging that you dismissed the employee or terminated the services without following due process, and there you find yourself at the CCMA. So why is compliance important? You avoid legal trouble, legal challenges, and legal disputes, which is a costly affair, as you all know, big or small business. You improve employee productivity. Employees will be happy. You would retain them. You build a strong business reputation. Your business is enhanced in every possible way. No amount of artificial intelligence can replace these human beings that have a heartbeat. So I think it's very, very imperative and important that you comply with the rules. Now, as I've indicated, we have a diverse audience on this platform. And of course, the various jurisdictions will have specific labor laws and prescripts that apply to them. But from a South African context, I want to very quickly just highlight the relevant, but not only prescripts and legislation. We have the Labor Relations Act. We have the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. We have the Employment Equity Act. And we have the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So, what are your responsibilities as an employer, even if you have one person in your employment? You need to comply with the labor laws. Firstly, you need to make sure that you provide employees with written employment contracts that are simply written, not in too much of legal jargon. And that can be done. You ensure that you pay them the minimum wage and they get fair payment for the work that they do. You comply with their working hours and you pay them accordingly. Make sure that you comply with overtime rules as prescribed in the LRA and the other prescripts that I've alluded to. You must also grant them the mandatory leave that they're entitled to. You cannot hold against them their leave because of other reasons. That is something that they're entitled to and need to be given an opportunity to take, not with the assertion that the business cannot afford to have them on leave, which happens often as we confront them in legal disputes and battles at the various labor tribunals. Very, very importantly, we need to make sure that we follow fair procedures as far as dismissals are concerned. We know that there are various reasons why one would dismiss, which I'm going to go into, but you need to make sure that you follow fair procedure, which is very clear in terms of the LRA and the other policy documents that you might put in to support your the LRA, like the grievance procedures, the disciplinary procedures, and so forth. So what are the compliance pitfalls that we as legal officials or legal practitioners encounter when we're dealing with, in particular, employees, but also represent the interest of employees at the CCMA, the different courts, the labor courts, etc. And these are the pitfalls that surface more often than not. One of them, you hire without contracts, which is absolutely flying in the face of what labor law requires you to do. You dismiss employees, or let's say employers dismiss employees without due process that are required and that are set out. and that are bargained and agreed upon between the various interested parties, like our social partners, the unions, etc. Non-payment of overtime and minimum wages, ignoring workplace safety regulations, including but not limited to making sure that you have policies in place as far as sexual harassment is concerned, which is a serious issue in terms of protecting the interest of not only women, but the vulnerable against sexual exploitation, which is a scourge that faces our country day in and day out. Very importantly, not keeping accurate records. Now, when you are preparing for a matter, what one often encounters is that we do not have documentation in place. I mean, employees come and go, but you cannot go and look for an employee to explain why such a decision was taken. I mean, an employee in the capacity of a supervisor and a manager. Those must be on record, kept at HR, so that the person or the supervisor, if they are not available, you have it on record. And that is what we so often find, that you are being sought after to explain why a decision was taken or not, whereas there are people that have replaced you and need to be able to account from the records that are available. Non-compliance with probation requirements, that's a very serious issue, and it's encountered very, very often. Now, one very important aspect that I wanted to touch on was the issue of poor work performance and misconduct. It is often misconstrued, but it is very clear there are differences and there are similarities between poor work performance and misconduct. So with poor work performance, what we have is an employee who is unable to meet the standards due to lack of skill or knowledge. And this particular employee needs coaching and an improvement plan in place to assist him to achieve the required standard. When you come to misconduct, this is the employee's deliberate choice to break the rules. And of course, it would need disciplinary action, but depending on the severity of the misconduct, it would be progressive, and in some cases, it can amount to summary dismissal, where the employee is found with his hand in the cookie jar, the so-called proverbial term in terms of labor law, where you could summarily dismiss an employee. So as I've indicated, some of the examples of poor work performance: low sales, errors in the work that they do, slow productivity, misconduct, theft, fraud, absenteeism, insubordination. So poor work performance versus misconduct, as I've indicated, there are distinct concepts, but both, in terms of the similarities, can lead to disciplinary action and dismissal. There are differences in terms of the nature, the way you handle it. In terms of poor work performance, there are legal requirements. You need to follow a process where you call the employee in, identify what the issues are, expose the employee to training and development, employee assistance programs, etc. Have an action plan in place, monitor it regularly, sit with the employee. And ultimately, if all else has failed in terms of the labor law, it requires a repetitive process. And then you ultimately can terminate the services of the employee through a process, informing them and sitting them down, informing them that you followed the due processes. Unfortunately, the employee has not developed to the standard of the requirement, and you are parting ways. It needs to be done very amicably. Misconduct, of course, you follow the process. You start with the disciplinary process. The labor law requires verbal warning, a written warning, but it also is supported by the disciplinary code and the grievance procedures, whichever might be relevant to a business, big or small. So poor work performance is inability. Misconduct is violation of a disciplinary code. So I thought it was important for us to discuss that. There are many similarities, And in our experience, when we're dealing with the matters of this nature, we often find that employees are actually charged with misconduct and dismissed as a result of misconduct rather than poor work performance. And then you find yourself with egg on the face in the tribunal that you are before to protect the interest of the employer, because from the very start you followed the wrong procedure. So, but termination or dismissal can be justified if the employee is properly handled. I've spoken to the issue of progressive discipline. All throughout of this, we must take note of the fact that the employee has rights to a fair trial, to a fair hearing, to representation, to reasons for termination. And as I've said at the very outset, the employer also has rights. So we cannot, or from my point of view, I think the Labor Relations Act and the various other supportive legislation is balanced. It provides support to an employer and an employee. It enables them to exercise their rights in accordance with relevant procedures. So, yeah, we talk about from a South African perspective, the Schedule 8, the Code of Good Practice, that's part of the Labor Relations Act. And of course, that's the schedule that one needs to follow in terms of poor work performance and misconduct procedures. So lastly, the big issue as well that I think one needs to talk about is employees on probation. It's so often that we employ individuals coming from school or maybe graduates as well. But we all know the theory is one thing, and putting theory into practice requires interaction, coaching, your colleagues and your supervisors providing you with the support to be able to do the work. So with an individual on probation, with an employee on probation, it's an absolute requirement that you have a plan in place. You inform the employee of the duration of the probation. You have quarterly reports. You start off with an action plan, a development plan. You follow the progress of the employee. If there are deviations, you need to sit with the officer on probation, inform them of the deviations, find out what the reasons are, expose them to HR support, including all your HR support programs like employee assistance, social workers, etc. So you cannot now, at the end of the probation period, come to the conclusion, well, this employee has not met the requirements, and we want to now end the probation period by dismissing or terminate the services. You need to apply whatever you have to in terms of empowering the probation officer, the official on probation, progressively. So often we find that everything is honky-dory, the supervisor is fine, he gives the employee a rating of 4 and a 5 and even a 3, and then ultimately at the end, because of some or other reasons unbeknown or not on record, decides that I do not want to continue with the confirming the contract of the officer on probation. So as I've indicated, you set clear KPIs, provide training and feedback. You can even extend the probation period if necessary. A lot of employees have this in place as far as the prescripts are concerned. And ultimately, follow a fair procedure in the event that you want to terminate and you realize that there's no way that you're going to be able to continue this relationship with the probation officer. So it requires a structured approach in accordance with the labor law, but also as a protection to the employer. You need to understand that employees on probation do not have an automatic protection from dismissal. They can be dismissed, but fair procedure must be followed. And of course, if they believe that their dismissal was unfair, they can challenge it at the CCMA and the other tribunals. So what are the consequences for an employer not complying with the labor laws? Of course, there's a plethora. I've just touched on a few issues because of the time limit and, of course, the nature of the presentation. So these are the consequences. First and foremost, it has a severe financial impact on you as a business, and it touches on the budget of the business, the pocket of the business. Unfair dismissal claims, penalties, loss of productivity as well. You need to pay compensation. In some instances, you need to reinstate the employer. The legal consequences, the CCMA challenges, I think we all know how expensive it is to employ the services of an attorney and a lawyer to represent you at the CCMA and the various courts. So I think to avoid that, it's not difficult, but ensure compliance. Legal penalties, as I've indicated, lawsuits, fines that you may be subjected to in terms of the LRA for non-compliance. And very importantly, poor work performance from the employees themselves. If they're not treated well, how are you going to expect them to continue to work if they've not been subjected to a fair disciplinary process? Of course, the CCMA can overturn the dismissals and reinstate employees, or even grant promotions if such processes were not properly followed in not considering the employee. So, as I've indicated, CCMA disputes are costly, time-consuming. What about reputational damage for your company? It's harder to attract employees. I think all of us are striving to be out there in the media as employer of choice. And it takes hard work to get there, but it's not difficult. Compliance ensures smooth operations, employee morale and retention. Compliance fosters loyalty and efficiency. So what can you do as an employer to stay updated or to be compliant? You must stay updated with the developments around you as far as HR and other issues are concerned. Check your HR policies, update them regularly. You cannot come up with the excuse that I have just one employee and therefore I should not have these prescripts and policy documents in place. You must verify your contracts, check if they are still relevant. Of recent times, with the advent of COVID-19, we need to look at our force majeure clauses, which is a legal principle that I'm very close to because I deal with contracts on a regular basis. And we found that in most contracts, the issue of COVID-19 as a pandemic is not included in a force majeure clause. Force majeure means natural disasters, storms, etc., even government initiatives that prevent you from doing what you need to do. It also finds itself in contracts of employment. Payroll adherence, educate employees, provide training on workplace rights and safety. Very importantly, keep records, as I've indicated, store contracts, pay slips, leave documentation, warnings, and disputes. They help you when you're sitting with a dispute before the labor tribunals. Maintain documentation, as I've indicated. Lastly, but very importantly, consult legal experts. You might think it's an expensive exercise, but it will save you in the long run. Seek professional advice where you are uncertain. So in conclusion, colleagues, I want to say that investing in employees' rights and well-being isn't just compliance. It's smart business. A company's reputation relies on it. It's not built on products and services alone, but it is built on how you treat your employees. Strong labor law compliance builds trust. It results in high performance teams. Loyal employees are not found. They are created through fair treatment and respect. Labor law compliance is not just a legal duty. It's a smart business move and strategic advantage. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Sally, that was absolutely amazing, and it's so important. And there are so many small businesses and homeowners who employ domestics. They employ, maybe they employ one or two people around them, and I'm sure a lot of them don't have the necessary documentation, contracts, and in place. And it's so easy to employ somebody, but the thing is that they, as you said so correctly, they are the heartbeat of your business. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was a fantastic sum up. I learned a lot. There's certain things that I need to do as well. So Sally, I'd like to really thank you for that. I'd like to just go around the room quickly and ask Mana perhaps to come on. I know Mana employs a few people. And Mana, maybe you can share some experiences from your point of view.
Yeah, I would just like to say, we are very, my staff knows, they always need to treat our clients fairly. And I think that's the thing that we always try and do. But at the same time, you need to treat your employees fairly as well, even more so. But there's something that I want to ask you about. I see some employers does this now. So I spoke to someone 2 days ago. So what happened to her and her company was they were actually called in one by one to say, okay, we've got a choice now. The business is in trouble. So we're either going to retrench you. Those are the choices. They gave them the two choices. Either going to retrench you or you're going to come and stay on as an independent contractor. So then what do? I mean, you were reliant on that salary or on that salary. And then they went and they halved the hours in the contracts. Instead of working a full day, they're now only working half day. So that slashed the income by half. Apart from that, is now they don't have UIF. So this particular lady I spoke to is she found out that she's pregnant after she signed the independent contract. So now she's not going to be able to find alternative employment because she's pregnant. And nobody's going to want to employ her right now. The second part of it is she does not have the UIF anymore. I would like to know your take on that. That's not, to me, treating an employee fairly.
Thank you, David. Should I respond?
Yes, please do, Sally. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Marna. So in summarizing your question or your advice that you require, so you have a situation where the company is closing down and they need to make alternative arrangements as far as the employees are concerned, or not closing down. I suppose they reducing the strength of the company.
Scaling down, I would say.
Okay, so the company is closing down, scaling down.
Scaling down, yes.
So basically, my take on that would be there need to be consultation at the very outset with the unions, the respective unions, in terms of the entire process of scaling down and management. And there need to be some kind of consensus reached as to how they're going to be dealing with the employees. Firstly, I've heard of a situation where an employer, whilst getting into trouble, decided to overnight close the company down. And when the employees turned up, the gates were locked. So that's totally out of
unacceptable.
So basically, they need to sit down. There needs to be some kind of agreement. Yes, of course, if the company is in trouble, there are ways and means of dealing with that. And employing them as independent contractors, there are specific requirements. And sometimes employing somebody as independent contractor is actually an employee, an independent contractor being an employee, but under the pretext of being an independent contractor, so has not to comply with the requirements in respect of an employee. So you hide from that and do not want to comply. Then you get an independent contractor, but for all intents and purposes, the independent contractor is actually an employee. So an independent contractor is not found in the definition of an employee, but there are specific requirements as well. So there needs to be compliance. As far as UIF is concerned, I actually was approached not so long ago as well in that regard, where the so-called employee was employed on contract and on commission basis and did not receive a commission. So the question was, what happens to the UIF and the skills development fees that need to be paid? And my research indicated that actually even though no payment is made as far as the UIF is concerned, the employee will be entitled to such benefits. But of course, you need to look at the particulars of each matter. And in this particular instance, I'm hoping that there has been compliance from the very outset in terms of consultation, in terms of sitting down, in terms of finding the best possible way in the interest of the employer and the employee. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you. You did.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Sally. I'm going to go to Glenn and just ask Glenn if he's got any questions or any takes on what Sally's spoken about. Glenn?
Thanks, David. Yes, thank you, Sally. I really appreciate that. It's so true what you're saying in terms of both sides of the scale, both the employer and the employee. You've got to look at both sides. Just a quick example as well of the issues that can take place when what Mona spoke about with a company closing down or alternatively scaling down or getting to a point where they just can't afford employees any longer. I had a situation several years back when I was running my own brokerage where a company actually decided to scale down, and they actually did a real dirty one. They actually shut down on all the employee benefits and everything to that effect, but they didn't really give enough information out, and unfortunately someone got disabled during that time period, but the group life cover had fallen away. So you can understand there's major issues like this that can take place, and it can be major court cases and I don't know whatnot. So I think what Sally has spoken about, it's so important in terms of communication, both from the employer and the employee side. As an employee, though, I always maintain, and I know it's difficult because sometimes we don't have that knowledge, but I think it's always important to take steps further and make 100% sure that everything is in place for things like this, that if something like this does take place, that you at least got backup yourself. That's never easy, but yeah, it's something that's quite important. I've certainly seen that in my own business as well and employing people in the past. But yeah, besides that, communication, that's a big one, absolute big one in terms of this type of thing. Thanks, David.
Well, thank you very much, Glenn. Let's just hear from Wilhelm. Wilhelm, have you got any questions? Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, maybe I can just ask Sally. You know, I know about of a lady, and you know that what they call it, constructive dismissal. They are making it very difficult for her to work at the place. What's her rights? Can she? You know, they didn't really have a contract in place. They didn't do all these things that you talk about. But what now? What can she worked there for 4 years, almost 4 years now, and suddenly it seems that they want to have a position for a family member or somebody, and now she sits with this difficulty. How can one do it? I know one can go to the CCMA, but I believe one can negotiate. And what's her rights can she do something about this whole fact? Because it's not nice to work there anymore for her, and she really rather would like to go.
Sally, would you like to address that?
Thank you. So I think the fact that she would rather like to opens the doors for some kind of meeting of the minds, consultation, sitting down with the employer and saying to the employer, even though Willem has indicated that there might be non-compliance with the prescripts insofar as getting rid of her is concerned, but because she also wants to leave, she could sit down and strike a bargain with them. So basically, there should be some kind of a meeting. She could get on board and part in good ways, provided that they reach agreement in terms of good compensation for herself, if that's what she's willing to do. But otherwise, it really smacks in the face of the procedure as far as dismissal is concerned. And based on what you're presenting to me, Willem, it sounds like, well, it is constructive dismissal. and she can exercise her rights at the CCMA. But of course, if she's been dismissed already, then the internal prescripts would not apply to her, but she should approach the CCMA. And of course, with constructive dismissal, one needs to show that it is a constructive dismissal, and that the employee, in any case, wanted to get rid of her and made work intolerable to the extent that it's now become a constructive dismissal. And a constructive dismissal is something that the employee himself, I would say, undertake as well, stay away and say, well, the employee is treating me badly, and now I'm going to the CCMA. But in this particular instance, I would say that they need to sit down, because there appears to be serious challenges on behalf of on the side of the employer. Thank you, Valelum.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much. Sally, I'm aware that you've got time constraints, and that, let me just put myself here, that you've got time constraints. And I'd just like to thank you so much for being here and, spending some time with us just to explain these things. And they are imperative. I think it's not only here in South Africa, but anywhere in the world. You need to follow whatever the constraints of law are and actually follow them through, because you want to be in compliance, but you also want a satisfied workforce, because they are the heartbeat of your business. So, Sally, I'd like to really thank you. I'd like to just ask, is there any closing statement that you'd like to say? And how can people actually get hold of you if they need to get hold of you for any advice or whatever they need? Back to you, Sally.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. I hope my presentation has been informative and helped you in whatever small way. Well, my parting shot is that, as I've indicated, compliance with the labor prescripts is a strategic advantage to you as a business, big or small, or as an employer, big or small. And I'm reachable. I want to promote the Friday Club here. I'm a member of the Friday Business Club that is being led by Glenn. And of course, you would find me on LinkedIn. And I'm at the Loftus Chambers. And my information is readily available. And I'm at your beck and call to provide advice. And I believe I also have a social responsibility. I'm involved in a lot of legal aid work, providing support to those that cannot afford to pay for legal fees. Thank you. I would be following, but while I'm commuting to my next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much, and accolades to you for coming to join us and share with us. I see that there are a number of questions that have been raised in the comments, and Sally will go along and have a look at those and answer them. And what we do now is after every session that we have every Thursday, we go along and write a newsletter. So there will be a newsletter covering all the aspects that Sally spoke about. It will be a brief one, but there will be a summary of that. So those of you who would like to get that, go along and subscribe to the newsletter. Next week is the 1st of the month, and on the 1st of every month, we do a networking session. That's when we hear your voices. So you're most welcome to come and join us there. It will be on Zoom. We'll supply the link. Come and talk and come and share about you and your business, and come and connect and network with like-minded people. So please come and join us. I'd like to just go around the room and just ask each Glenn and Mana and Wilhelm for their takeaways from this session. So let's start with Mana. Mana, back to you.
I think the lesson I learned is that I need to treat my clients, my employees, better than my clients sometimes, because they are more important. If I keep them happy, my clients are happy. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you, Mana. Let's go to Wilhelm. Wilhelm, over to you.
Yeah, the most important thing for me is that you must think about, why did you start your business? It's sometimes, yes, to make money, but it's also to provide a job for other people, to help other people to have a living and enjoy life as well, and have a quality life. And often people tend to forget that because of the pressures of life and business, and you must focus and whatever, and they miss the people factor. You know, Sally actually mentioned that your people are the most valuable asset, and you need to treat them well. And it's sort of common sense now that to do the right things right. Yes, the law's there to help us, to guide us, but we need to do the right things right and really care for other people and focus on that aspect. And if, as Chief mentioned, if you are okay with your team and they are okay with you, you can move mountains, and it can be lucrative for everybody. So treat your people well. Don't fall into the trap that your people become your workers become your enemies, because they are really important for your success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Glenn, final words from you.
I'll make it short and sweet. I mentioned communication just now, which is extremely important, but I think probably even more important than that is the word listening. Listening. Once again, both from the employer and the employee side, we need to be listening and making sure we understand each other. I always quote from Stephen Covey: seek first to understand, then be understood. And so that's the important aspect for me. Thank you very much. Great show. Excellent. Thanks, David. Thanks, people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for being here, and especially to the listeners. I really appreciate you all guys being here from wherever you are. And I hope this was a great lesson to you. Please go along and give this link to others who would like to actually listen to it. There's a link on YouTube, there's a link on Facebook, and there's a link on LinkedIn. So please go and look at those and share this for those who you believe may need to learn a little bit about labor law and doing it smart. I think that's the most thing. So next week we'll be at networking. The following week, got a very interesting person coming to talk about their journey to success. And then the following week, we've got a very interesting concept that's being introduced into South Africa called CTAP. We've got a presentation there. And then we'll carry on with business acumen thereafter. So we're looking forward to a very productive week, month in March. And we look forward to all of you being here. And please go along and keep following us and keep in touch. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you next week in Zoom. Cheerio, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Picture this. It's the dawn of 2025 and you're poised for success. Why? Because you've established your why. This isn't just a whim or a hobby. It's the passion that propels you forward, the core of your ambition. Next, you assess your current position. Where do you stand? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Honesty is key here. Now envisage your destination. What do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Set those goals. Make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. With your destination locked, it's time to map out your plan. Break down your goals into manageable steps, then start stepping. Remember, action without reflection is aimless. Record your results, analyze your performance, and adjust your plan accordingly. The path to success in 2025 isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Take meaningful action, keep your eye on the prize, and continually strive for improvement. Here's to a successful 2025.